I don't know where these two survivors found the courage to challenge my authority, but this is the perfect opportunity to make an example out of them. Clearly, the two leopards recognized me as well. After all, my tiger father killed their brother, so it's only natural that they'd seek revenge on me, his cub. I shielded my tiger siblings behind me, fixed my gaze on the two leopards in the distance, and let out a furious roar, like a king awaiting the enemy's challenge. Although I'm much larger than an average tiger cub, the leopard brothers still didn't take me seriously. They flanked me from the left and right, forming an encirclement. Standing ready, the battle was about to begin. Many predators in the surrounding mountains and forests were watching this battle. I had to defeat the leopard brothers with overwhelming force to prove the first step on my path to becoming king. Facing their encirclement, I launched the first attack. After months of surviving together, the leopard brothers had become even more coordinated. Whenever I attacked one of them, the other would suddenly charge at me. When I had to turn to defend myself, the first would attack from the other side in the same way. But I was not afraid at all, thanks to the thickness of the fat on my body. Even if they managed to bite me, they couldn't rip open my belly. But as long as I seized the opportunity and managed to bite either one of them, it would be fatal for them. So I focused all my strength on the leopard in front of me. However, my speed was no match for the leopards now. Every time I was just about to bite its neck, it always managed to dodge. But soon, I found a way to deal with them. I pretended to relentlessly chase the leopard in front, but in reality, it was a feint. At the very moment the leopard behind me caught up to attack, I suddenly turned around and bit down hard. A leopard's spine is both hard and fragile, but my bite force rivals that of an adult tigress. In an instant, I snapped its spine. The other leopard was terrified by the tragic fate of its companion. Once it realized what had happened, it fled in panic, not even caring which way it ran. In its mind, a young tiger from the jungle shouldn't be this fierce. For the safety of the three little ones behind me, I didn't continue the chase. I believe that today's battle will make the other predators watching recognize my strength. Now, aside from a fully grown tiger, no predator dares to confront me head on. Having dealt with this minor issue, I continued on patrol with my three tiger brothers. Just then, I caught a familiar scent in the air. Looking toward the distant hillside, I saw Tiger Dad appear once again. This time he didn't make a sound. He simply gazed at me from afar with deep, commanding eyes, as if he were trying to convey something. Perhaps it was a form of acknowledgement. However, just as we were about to enter Tiger Mom's territory at the edge of the forest, from the nearby forest came the roar of another male tiger, a completely unfamiliar one. A few minutes later, another roar echoed from a different direction in the woods, signaling the presence of a second unfamiliar adult male tiger. I began to feel increasingly tense and uneasy. Just then, a familiar, deeper tiger roar sounded in the distance as well. As if in response, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. With Tiger Dad, a strong and vigorous male tiger, holding the territory, other outsider males wouldn't dare to invade recklessly, unless in a fight, Tiger Dad was defeated. But given his size and strength, that was simply not possible. Tiger Dad now firmly stands at the top among this generation of adult male tigers. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to continue along the edge of the territory. On one hand, it was out of respect for Tiger Mom's territorial rights. On the other, I was curious to see the newly arrived adult male tiger. This was likely a young adult wanderer, searching for a territory to claim, or perhaps coming to the edge of an occupied territory to challenge with a roar. If the resident tiger didn't respond, or showed signs of old age and weakness, the newcomer would seize the opportunity to invade. If I could see this unfamiliar male tiger with my own eyes, and assess its strength, it would help me make plans for the future. The further I walked, the stronger my sense of unease became. Often, a tiger's sixth sense is incredibly accurate, so I had little tiger brother take Tiger 1 and Tiger 2 in another direction, while I headed toward where the tiger's roar had come from. Sure enough, after walking less than 2 kilometers, I caught sight of that agile adult tiger through the gaps between the trees, and a powerful urge to fight surged within me. Perhaps sensing something, the tiger looked warily in my direction, even passing right by where I was hiding. Although it had only just reached adulthood, it was already stronger than me in terms of weight, strength, and bite force. Charging in recklessly, driven by a rush of blood, was clearly not a wise choice. I suppressed my urge to fight, and watched as it walked past me. Just give me another 6 months, and I'll be unrivaled in this forest. At that moment, I didn't realize that, without noticing, my desire to fight was growing stronger and stronger, making me more and more like a human. Recently, Tiger Mom has been eager to have another cub with Tiger Dad, so I've been the one hunting and providing for the territory. With me and my 3 tiger brothers, it's enough. On this particular day, as I was teaching the 3 little ones, while I was teaching them some skills, something unusual happened. In the area where the territories of 3 Amur tigers overlapped, waves of tiger roars swept through the forest like the tide. The roars were filled with anger, and thanks to my keen hearing, I also picked up on other subtle sounds. I immediately realized that 2 male tigers were fighting. Instantly energized, I dashed over at full speed. I was so excited. Territory disputes like this were something I had never witnessed before. Today was the perfect chance to join the commotion and broaden my horizons. After running more than 10 kilometers, I stood on a high vantage point and could clearly see the fight unfolding. The nearby animals, terrified by the ancient, thunderous tiger roars, scattered in all directions. One of the tigers was the young Amur tiger I had seen before, just reaching adulthood, while the other was not the tiger father, but rather the adult tiger who peacefully coexisted with him and ruled the neighboring territory. Perhaps the wandering tiger, having encountered the tiger father before, decided to challenge this local tiger, who seemed less formidable by comparison. The 2 male tigers stood upright on their hind legs, just like humans. They scratched at each other's upper bodies with their claws, and before long, both were covered in blood. Soon, just using their claws was no longer enough to demonstrate their dominance, and the 2 male tigers began to fight each other. The fighting was ruthless. Among Amur tigers, such battles are usually the most brutal and ferocious, with almost no signs of surrender or giving up from either side. As night gradually fell, the 2 male tigers, having inflicted wounds on each other at the start, were now locked in a test of endurance, waiting to see who would be the first to falter and expose a weakness, only to be met with a fatal blow. At the same time, they were both aware that the surrounding forests were filled with onlookers, all witnessing the outcome of this fierce contest. This only served to further assert their authority. Although both were injured, none of the other predators dared to underestimate them. Instead, they looked on with awe. After about half an hour of endurance, the forest tiger was the first to succumb to exhaustion, and the injury to his foreleg caused his body to sway slightly. Although he quickly tried to correct himself, his opponent seized the opportunity. In that fleeting moment, a tiger's shadow leapt forward, and the newly crowned territory tiger was pinned beneath the wanderer. There was no suspense. Even though both were armored tigers, no adult tiger could withstand the bite force of another. A victor had emerged, and the newly stabilized authority once again fell upon this young male tiger. The defeated Amur tiger before me was a vivid example of what happens to those who lose. That's why I have always kept a low profile, quietly building up my strength. When I am strong enough, I will embark on my own path to kingship, challenging different territory tigers along the way, and ultimately becoming the king of kings. I want to be even stronger than my tiger father, to rule over even vaster forests, to learn from humans, and become the true king of the Amur tigers, subduing them one by one, granting them territories, and having them obey my commands. As the three little ones grew, their appetites also increased noticeably, which meant the pressure on me to hunt was gradually mounting. I had to secure my own territory as soon as possible to meet the needs of all four of us tigers. After leaving the tigress's territory, I became especially cautious, because in this area, besides Tiger Father, there were two unfamiliar male tigers. If I were to encounter any of them, it would almost certainly spell disaster. But as fate would have it, what you fear most always comes to pass. Just as I found a temporary resting spot, I heard the footsteps of an adult male tiger coming from the forested hills behind me. I wasn't sure if this adult male was the one whose eyes had been blinded by Tiger Father before, but I always felt that the blind tiger harbored some special intentions. I immediately leapt to a higher vantage point and looked in the direction of the sound. Sure enough, it was the blind tiger, but its behavior was strange. It was carrying in its mouth the fresh, unrotted head of a male tiger, and the direction it was heading was right toward the border between Tiger Father's territory and that of the young neighboring male. I started to feel uneasy, even worried, afraid that what I had previously suspected was slowly becoming reality. If this male tiger's head were to appear within Tiger Father's territory, the consequences would be unimaginable. At that moment, a terrifying thought crossed my mind. Could it be that this blind tiger was doing this on purpose, trying to provoke a conflict between Tiger Father and the young male next door? Even if that young male couldn't defeat Tiger Father? But even so, with its youth and strength, it could still inflict some injuries on Tiger Father. Then, the blind tiger could seize the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. This line of reasoning sent chills down my spine. Having watched plenty of wildlife documentaries in my previous life, I never believed a Siberian tiger could pull off such a cunning scheme. A tiger using another tiger to achieve its own ends. To test my suspicions, I secretly followed the blind tiger from a distance and watched as it entered Tiger Father's territory. About 10 minutes later, it came back out, and the male tiger's head was gone. Now it's very likely that the head is somewhere in the forests of Tiger Father's territory. If Tiger Father discovers this during his patrol, then a conflict between the two neighboring tigers is bound to break out. I can't tell him the blind tiger did it, but I won't just stand by and watch them scheme against him. As I entered the five overlords' territory, an angry roar rang out. It was clearly Tiger Father. I pushed myself to the fastest speed possible to stop him from crossing the border, but I was too late. Tiger Father was glaring fiercely at the severed head. To him, the neighbor's new cub showed no respect, even stepping into his territory to deliver this as a show of defiance. This was a direct challenge to the dignity of Mother Bone King that could not be tolerated. From those few angry tiger roars, you could tell just how furious Tiger Father was inside. If I rashly approached at this moment, I might very well become the first target for Tiger Father to vent his anger on. After all, the father-son relationship between us was no longer as close as it used to be. Right now, I should do everything I can to prevent Tiger Father from coming face to face with that young male tiger. But compared to this, what surprised me even more was the cunning and scheming of that blind tiger. This was already beyond what a Siberian tiger should be capable of. Could it be that, like me, the other party also possessed a human soul? At this moment, Tiger Father was like a powder keg, with the blind tiger as the fuse, and the flame being that young male tiger near the edge of the territory. Tiger Father, with a hostile look in his eyes, walked toward the edge of the territory not far away, completely consumed by anger. Meanwhile, the young male tiger was patrolling his own forest, spraying urine on the trees wherever he went to mark and display his scent, intimidating any intruders. But in the next instant, a terrifying tiger roar erupted within his territory. The new lord instantly cast aside his excitement. A bear-like tiger had come to challenge him, and even brazenly roared to invite him to battle. Having just defeated another male tiger, how could he possibly tolerate this? Watching Tiger Father steadily approach the other's territory, I was filled with anxiety. I couldn't wait any longer. When Tiger Father stepped into the young male tiger's territory, I couldn't care about anything else. I let out a tiger roar in the forest nearby, imitating the tone of the tigress, as if from afar. It seemed that Tiger Father heard it and responded with a roar of his own. Seeing Tiger Father stop in his tracks, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. At the critical moment, it really takes a tigress's roar to work wonders. But just as Tiger Father was puzzled and saw that it was me, his previously relaxed mood turned irritable again. Unexpectedly, as I hurried over to Tiger Father's side, just as I was about to explain what I had just done, I was suddenly stunned by a slap from Tiger Father. Immediately after, a blatant warning came rushing at me. Tiger Father was furious, probably blaming me for imitating the tigress's call. I stepped forward, letting out a wild laugh as well, signaling to Tiger Father that there was danger ahead. But just as I finished saying the first sentence, from deep within the opposite forest, the young tiger appeared, and the atmosphere instantly became so tense, it felt frozen. Although there was some estrangement between Tiger Father and me, that's just family matters. As the young male tiger approached, Tiger Father still didn't hesitate to shield me behind him. The two male tigers stared at each other like that, the dangerous light in their blue eyes growing ever more intense. I swept my gaze across the surrounding mountains, my intuition telling me that the one-eyed tiger, the mastermind behind all this, was watching from some corner. A few seconds later, the two figures simultaneously accelerated toward each other. Tiger Father truly lived up to his reputation as a battle-hardened veteran. The moment the young male tiger lunged at him to bite, Tiger Father's massive paw struck out at just the right distance. The young male tiger took a solid slap, and a flash of fear and unease appeared in his eyes. Shaking his somewhat dizzy head to regain his composure, he once again charged at Tiger Father with renewed fighting spirit. But just like the first time, he was once again outmatched by Tiger Father's experience. He was slapped again. Tiger Father's affectionate gesture toward the young male tiger made the latter feel a strong sense of humiliation. Both of his attacks had been casually brushed off by the other, and his face was still burning with pain. The young male tiger couldn't take it anymore. He kept letting out dangerous and angry roars, pacing back and forth not far ahead, as if searching for the best angle and moment to attack. Just then, I spotted the one-eyed tiger. On a rock 2 kilometers away, he was quietly watching everything happening here, observing the standoff between Tiger Father and the young male tiger. I wanted to intervene, but I was worried I might make things even worse. Tiger Father had no intention of holding back either. He began looking for an opportunity to take the initiative. His combat experience was extensive, far beyond that of the young male tiger, who was just a novice by comparison. Could the young tiger possibly match Tiger Father? Seizing the moment, Tiger Father lunged at the young tiger. His figure soared through the air like a shadow, instantly enveloping the young tiger. In no time, the young tiger was pinned beneath Tiger Father, who bit down hard on his body. Only then did the young tiger realize the true terror of Tiger Father. The fear in his eyes was almost palpable at that moment. He regretted his actions deeply, and if he managed to escape with his life today, he would probably never set foot in Tiger Father's territory again for the rest of his days. After a brief struggle, Tiger Father's jaws released the young tiger's body, and then he let out a deafening roar right in front of the other's ear. This was the most powerful intimidation. He did not deal a fatal blow to the loser, which seems to be an unspoken rule among male tigers when they fight. The blind tiger had disappeared at some unknown point, and I also didn't realize that just after Tiger Father and I had left, the blind tiger silently reappeared. He stuck out his tongue and licked some of the tiger blood left on the ground, then looked around and found that all the blood scattered on the ground belonged to the young tiger. For a moment, a ripple of emotion appeared in his usually calm tiger eyes. It was a look of disdain. He sniffed at some of Tiger Father's fur that had fallen on the forest floor, and in his only remaining eye, his gaze grew even colder. In the blink of an eye, 3 months passed. During this time, the young tiger would occasionally come to the edge of the territory, hurriedly marking it with his urine before running off. But one day, while I was hunting with my younger brother, I noticed something unusual in the forest. Because of this, I deliberately sniffed the young tiger's urine marks from before, and realized something was off. Even though he feared the authority of Tiger Father and Mother, the young male tiger would still sneak to the edge of his territory to spray. But now the scent had faded significantly, which was abnormal. If a male tiger no longer marks his territory with his urine, there is only one possibility. The thought that suddenly flashed through my mind startled me, especially when I thought of the previous abnormal behavior of the blind tiger. My unease grew even stronger. After making this discovery, I cautiously ventured deeper into this area. Within a range of several dozen kilometers, I found that 2 or 3 places where territorial markings should have been had all disappeared. Something unknown must have happened here. So, I decided to investigate the central area of the young tiger's territory. But what I saw there completely overturned my understanding. As I gradually approached the vicinity of the young tiger's den, I saw many animal carcasses along the way. Normally, it's not unusual to find animal carcasses in the territory of an armored tiger. But the sheer number of these carcasses was enough to make even a tiger like me shudder. This was nothing short of an indiscriminate massacre targeting all animals. I quickly climbed up to a high rock, and looking out, I saw that within a radius of 1 or 2 kilometers, there were actually over 100 animal carcasses. Upon closely examining each animal's remains, I found that most of them had been killed instantly by a bite to the throat, including medium and large animals like wild boars. The cervical vertebrae in their necks were also shattered. What was particularly strange was that these animal carcasses seemed to have been hollowed out, leaving only skin and bones behind. Judging by the current weather and the degree of decomposition, all these animals had been killed within the past 2 weeks. But what frightened me the most was that, despite such a major event happening, not only did I, who was at the edge of the territory, fail to notice anything unusual, even my experienced parents hadn't sensed that something was wrong. On the way to investigate, I felt immense pressure. The surrounding mountains and forests seemed like a gigantic creature watching over this area. The atmosphere was so unnaturally quiet that not even the birds in the forest chose to land here. Braving this overwhelming psychological pressure, I gradually approached the location of the tiger's den. As soon as I entered the den, within a radius of 200 to 300 meters, I caught an unusual scent in the air. There was the familiar smell of a young tiger, a strange scent from another of the same species, and an extremely intense smell of blood. I walked into the darkness ahead, where a faint glimmer of light shone through. I could now see the scene inside the tiger's den. It was a bewitching flower, exuding an incredibly strong scent of blood. At the very top of the flower, a tiny red fruit was giving off an irresistibly alluring fragrance. But what truly filled me with fear was the place where this plant had taken root. Countless roots and stems were burrowing into the flesh and bones of the young tiger, writhing as they drew nutrients to supply the plant above. Everything before my eyes was simply too bizarre. It even went beyond the limits of my understanding. In a daze, I caught another whiff of that alluring fragrance, and before I knew it, I took a step forward. Instantly, the entire scene before my eyes changed. Towering skyscrapers, dazzling lights, and scenes of revelry, all things I had nearly forgotten since being reborn as a tiger, appeared once again. Fearfully, I glanced down at my own body. My once thick tiger paws had turned into 5 human fingers. From up ahead, I suddenly felt a sense of warmth and familiarity. I wanted to step forward and greet them, to ask if we knew each other, but a sudden wave of unease flashed through my heart. It made me stop just as I was about to take another step. Then, I felt a heart-wrenching pain. When I opened my eyes again, nothing in front of me had changed. The scene was the same. My body was still that of a Siberian tiger, and even my paws remained unchanged. Meanwhile, that bewitching plant was desperately trying to take root in my body. At this point, the plant had already broken through the fur and skin at my tiger paw, reaching the blood inside. Looking up again at the corner in front of the tiger's den, I saw that the young member, who had previously been able to let out faint, pained groans, had now turned into a corpse, looking exactly like those animals outside the cave. Realizing what was happening, I instinctively tried to tear the plant's stem with my tiger paw, but to my surprise, I couldn't break it no matter how hard I pulled. Then I bit down hard on its stem, my sharp teeth clamping down with all their strength. Forcing myself to endure the nausea, I pressed my jaws together with all my might. As I chewed on the plant clamped in my mouth, a sudden wave of warmth surged through my body. There was no time to think. I just wanted to escape this bizarre and terrifying place as quickly as possible. Because the roots had pierced into my tiger paw, I couldn't shake them off no matter how hard I tried. In the end, I simply gave a forceful shake, dragging the entire plant with me as I ran out of the tiger's den, forcing myself to endure the discomfort until I finally stopped. After reaching the area of my tiger mother's territory, I recalled the sensation of having swallowed a bit of that strange, alluring plant just moments before. I bit down on it again. Immediately, a rich fragrance filled my entire mouth, and the strange plant's stem suddenly became as hard as stone. At that moment, the mysterious power within me surged forth. In an instant, the rigid plant shattered into pieces, and the sweet liquid that flowed from the plant slid down into my stomach. The mysterious energy inside me instantly became restless, circulating throughout my body with a vigor 10 times greater than usual. I could clearly feel the changes happening within me. Astonishingly, the liquid inside this thing could greatly increase the mysterious energy within my body. The feeling of my strength surging so rapidly was intoxicating. Meanwhile, the blind tiger quietly returned to the tiger's den from earlier. However, it quickly sensed that something was wrong. The red plant it was so obsessed with had disappeared. It searched around the den and gradually picked up faint traces of its kind scent. Then, following the scent, the blind tiger slowly tracked it. Clearly, the recent disappearance of the blind tiger was closely related to this plant. At this moment, I had completely swallowed the plant. With my body now strengthened, not only could my nose and ears distinguish things from much farther away, but my speed and strength had also increased significantly, reaching a level that could truly rival it. I had reached the level of an ordinary adult male tiger, yet even I hadn't realized it. As I ran, my body underwent many unusual changes, as if a special, strange sensation was spreading throughout me, like an evolution. Gradually, I noticed that my condition was becoming increasingly abnormal. Not daring to linger too long in the forest, I sprinted at top speed toward my den. However, a dizzy feeling, similar to being drunk, grew stronger and stronger. In just a few kilometers, I crashed into dozens of trees. Yet the blind tiger chasing behind me was not surprised at all by this scene. It seemed that he had experienced such changes before. After chasing for another 7 or 8 miles, the expression on the blind tiger's face grew somewhat complicated. At that moment, he confirmed my identity. Standing amidst the forest, he pondered for a while, but ultimately gave up on the idea of continuing the pursuit. Even though that plant was something he had risked his life to bring out, and it had greatly strengthened his power, he still wasn't confident he could win right now. Once we snapped back to our senses, the two little ones even found the crawling plant somewhat attractive. They took a few steps forward, drawing closer to observe it. Little Tiger was only startled by this thing at first, but soon he too became deeply interested in it. Just then, a pair of strong, powerful tiger paws suddenly swiped forward at the plant's roots, coming within a few centimeters of touching the little tiger. At the critical moment, my tiger paw came down and saved his life. I still felt a bit dizzy in the head, and as soon as I opened my eyes, I vaguely saw the scene in front of me. Without hesitation, I raised my tiger paw and slammed it down hard, but the huge commotion made me pause for a moment. Clearly, I had only lifted my paw and pressed down lightly, yet my paw sank more than 10 centimeters into the soil. I was surprised by the strength of my tiger paw, and equally amazed by the clear liquid oozing from the plant. It seems this liquid is extremely beneficial for enhancing strength. From the moment I saw this plant, I realized this was not a simple world. Perhaps even more incredible things will happen in the future. In order to become stronger, I must seize every opportunity now, and perhaps plants are my opportunity. Glancing at the plant that had been completely flattened into the soil, I hooked it up from the ground with my paw, then told the 3 little ones to stay farther away, and headed to the spot where I had previously discarded animal bones. I found a wild boar leg bone and placed the plant on top of it. Nothing changed. The plant still played dead, as if it had withered. I could sense that this thing still had vitality. Its current appearance was just an act. I silently moved a bit closer, then gently picked up the newly refreshed tiger paw, making a blatant threat. With my current size, plus my greatly increased strength, if I really chewed on the spider plant like before, I'm afraid it really would be torn to pieces by my tiger fangs and then swallowed. With a soft rustling sound, the plant instantly became supple and changed its texture. Under my threat, all its roots nimbly took hold above the wild boar leg bone. I carefully observed its state. Its roots could easily penetrate the hard bone and then burrow deep inside, absorbing the nutrients it needed. Thinking back to what I saw before, I became more alert. Who knows if this thing has any other tricks up its sleeve? If it were to appear in this forest, it would be a disaster for all the animals. The 3 little ones didn't understand why their big brother had just been lying on the ground, making strange noises, with odd things crawling out of his mouth, and then suddenly woke up and started acting so strangely. They trotted over and gathered around their big brother. Watching this bizarre scene, I gently pushed aside the 3 curious little ones, and turned my attention to the changes in the plant. The red fruit that had been on top was now almost gone, and the thumb-thick stem had shriveled up quite a bit, looking sickly. After its roots pierced into the wild boar leg bone, a faint glow began to gather from the base, layer by layer, moving upward. In the end, all the energy gathered into the fruit at the top. I realized that this plant must absorb the life force of of other creatures and then condense it into the fruit at its crown, thereby achieving its own evolution. This scene left me a bit bewildered. Could it be that this mountain forest is about to undergo another earth-shattering change? My mutated eyes were no longer simply yellow, but now glimmered with a hint of inner fire. At this moment, I stared intently at the plant, exuding an aura of danger and terror. Truly, opportunity and risk always go hand in hand. I sighed, then issued a warning, telling the three little ones to stay away from this plant, while I ran off into the distant forest myself. But after just over 10 minutes, I returned with a wild rabbit I'd killed clamped in my jaws. Glancing at that plant in the distance, I was surprised to see it hadn't run away. It was still rooted atop the now nutritionless wild boar leg bone. At this moment, it was gently swaying its slender body with the mountain breeze, looking just like a little demon that had gained a spirit. I walked over and tossed the dead rabbit beside it. Before I could do anything else, it very consciously moved its roots over. In just 7 or 8 minutes, the 7 or 8 Jin wild rabbit had all its life essence absorbed by it. It seemed that this way of living was no different from before. Wherever it went, there was always food. The plant stirred for a moment, then its body swayed slightly, and it lowered itself in front of me, in a somewhat ingratiating manner. Then, it extended a root and laid it across in front of me. In the next moment, at the tip of the plant's root, a drop of pea-sized blue-green liquid appeared, suspended in mid-air. I understood what this blue-green liquid was. Perhaps it was the entirety of the life essence from that rabbit just now, but this time, I didn't stick out my tongue to lick it. After glancing at it, I called out to Little Tiger, summoning the 3 little ones behind me. Following his big brother's command, Little Tiger stuck out his tongue. The blue-green liquid on the plant roots dripped down, and a rich, fresh fragrance instantly filled Little Tiger's mouth. Then, in a flash, it was absorbed into his body, merging with his blood and beginning to flow to other parts of his body. However, after taking just a few steps forward, Little Tiger's body started to sway unsteadily. Before he could reach my side, he suddenly collapsed to the ground with a thud. I anxiously stepped forward to check on him. His breathing was still fairly steady. He had just temporarily lost consciousness. Relieved, I stayed by his side to keep watch. Meanwhile, after secreting that drop of blue-green liquid, the plant's body also became a bit sticky, as if this had been quite a burden for it as well. This time, I could see clearly that a single drop was definitely not its limit. The reason it appeared so weak was partly for show, to make me believe it. I couldn't help but sigh in admiration. This thing is hardly like an ordinary plant. It's more like a plant that has achieved enlightenment. It even understands some social nuances, knows how to feign weakness and disguise itself, playing the role of a fence sitter to perfection. If Xia Yanhuhu were to witness this scene, he would probably be even more indignant. Why is it that after providing so much nourishment, he only received a few drops of this plant's life essence, and even had to beg for it as if he were pleading with a lord for charity? I know what the appearance of this plant signifies, and what kind of impact it will have on this mountain forest, but I also understand that this might be the sign of a new world beginning. I must prepare in advance. The sudden changes disrupted my original plans. After closely watching Little Tiger to make sure there were no other life-threatening incidents, I finally relaxed. It was only after waiting for 2 hours that Little Tiger groggily opened his eyes, still a bit disoriented. I didn't have time to observe this process carefully, as I was preparing to continue hunting and to remind the 3 little ones to stay away from that plant. After that, I continued on toward the mountains. Although my body had undergone some changes and the process was quite painful, the gains were considerable. At the very least, I could now feel the immense power hidden within my body. Winter had already arrived, and not only did I need to provide food for the 3 little ones, but I also had to find a way to supply some nutrients to that plant, so it could produce more of that sweet liquid. At the very least, there needed to be enough for all 3 little ones to evolve. While waiting for Little Tiger to wake up, I also discovered that the bluish-green sweet liquid had a tremendous effect on strengthening the bodies of living creatures. If consumed in large quantities or over a long period, it could even break genetic limitations and allow one to evolve into a higher form of life. My heart grew even more eager, and I ran through the mountains and forests at an even faster pace. I could even leap 6 or 7 meters in a single bound now. After testing this out in the forest, I looked at the basketball-sized pit left by a single stomp of my paw and found it hard to gauge the extent of my current strength. And this time, the gains weren't limited to just increased strength and speed. My senses, like vision and hearing, also improved dramatically. The all-around enhancement of my physical abilities left me overjoyed. With my current strength, even if I encountered another adult Amur tiger, I'd be able to stand my ground or even defeat them. As I thought about this, I also prepared to feed the inner pearl's substance, providing enough nutrients to generate the blue-green life energy, and let the 3 little ones consume it in turn, so they could grow up quickly as well. If there was any surplus later on, I also considered giving some of these resources to Tiger Dad and Tiger Mom. Although the current gains are exciting, another thought crossed my mind. On the other hand, since this kind of plant has already appeared, could there be other unknown, powerful creatures out there that I don't know about? Worry began to grow in my heart, and I even started planning and thinking about how to deal with such a situation. I felt that relying on just us little tigers wouldn't be enough. We had to get Tiger Dad and Tiger Mom involved as soon as possible. Only then would we have enough strength to face unknown dangers before any major upheaval arrived. As I was deep in thought, I suddenly caught a thick, bloody scent in my nose. A black bear was eating. My mind immediately identified it, and it was about a dozen kilometers ahead to my left. I didn't hesitate any longer. I wanted to see if, with my current strength, I could defeat or even kill a black bear. With this thought, the power within my body erupted instantly, and I darted through the forest at incredible speed, determined to reach the black bear as quickly as possible. The distance of over 10 kilometers was neither too far nor too close. I rushed over at full speed, carefully controlling my strength. After more than 10 minutes, I arrived to find the black bear using its claws to dig into the corpse of a wild boar, which was still steaming. Suddenly, the black bear looked up and upon seeing me, froze for a moment. Then, an angry and dangerous roar echoed through the forest. The black bear's body seemed to go a bit wild, shaking as it charged toward me. I was not afraid of this black bear, whose body was even larger than mine. As it rushed at me, I let out a tiger-like roar and charged to meet it. The black bear's dark paw lashed out with force, aiming for my face. I stared intently, clearly seeing the bear's paw coming at me. Then, predicting its trajectory, I lowered my head slightly. My left tiger claw gathered strength and slashed at the black bear's plump belly, with a tearing sound like ripping cloth. By the time my charging body came to a stop and I turned to look back, I saw that my claw had left a deep gash in the bear's abdomen. White fat was exposed, mixed with a bit of blood, and separated by a thin membrane. The organs inside the bear's belly were clearly visible. The black bear let out a painful wail, and the heat in its eyes instantly turned to fear. Although it hadn't completely lost the will to fight, the claws of this tiger before it were simply too sharp, breaking through its defenses in an instant. The black bear was scared. If it stayed any longer, it felt it would die. Enduring the intense pain, it planted all four paws on the ground and began to flee toward a distant cave. Naturally, I wouldn't give it the chance. With a burst of strength in my limbs, I quickly picked up speed and easily caught up to the fleeing black bear. Without any fancy moves, I leapt up, pounced on the black bear, and then exerted all my strength to pin it down as it struggled to roll over. The black bear tried to attack my throat with its claws, but when it swiped at me, it barely managed to dislodge a few of my tiger hairs, leaving only a few white marks on my skin that quickly faded away. I hadn't expected my skin's defense to be so strong, something I'd been worried about before, but now I was truly reassured. Without hesitation, I seized the right moment and bit down on the black bear's throat. Its thick neck prevented me from biting through in one go, but after clamping down on part of it, I exerted force with my jaws and still managed to bite through half of its neck in one bite, killing it on the spot. I licked the blood from around my tiger mouth and looked at the twitching corpse of the black bear before me, feeling a bit emotional. With my current strength, killing a black bear is no longer a challenge. In fact, it even felt a bit easy. All of this is thanks to the benefits brought by that plant. Chin-Hu understood and bit down. I started dragging the bear paw out, then turned to look at the wild boar that had been hunted by the black bear. I didn't let that go either. I decided to take all this food back with me. Part of it would be for the three little ones, and part would be used as nourishment for the plant, refining the blue-green life substance. This easy battle both demonstrated and tested my now greatly increased strength. If I wanted to, I already have the power to challenge an adult male tiger and even take over its territory. Next, I plan to wander around the area. If there are no longer any signs of the blind tiger in the territory previously ruled by the wanderer, I'll consider taking it over. Should I bring this territory under my own rule?